Hey guys, thanks for joining us here at Salty Ginger Talk. If you're a returning listener, it's great to have you back. If you're new to the channel, really glad you joined us. Hope you like what you hear. Our podcast is for people that want to learn something new or make themselves a little bit better every day. And in today's episode, we're going to talk about how to build systems in your life. How do we automate the behaviors that we want to repeat? How do we ensure that the things we want to focus on, the good habits that we want to develop in our life, stick so that they become unconscious to us? We just do them. So that's the episode today. We're going to give you 5 tips on how to do that with real world examples and some advice and or direction on how to take action to incorporate these tips into your life so you can build these systems. So that's what we're going to talk about. Let's jump into it from there. So why do we want to do this? Obviously, we want consistency, right? Consistency is important. If we want a good result, we have to consistently perform a habit, whether that's eating better, whether it's lifting weights or exercising, whether it's performing well at work, whether it's being involved in good relationships. The thing that all of those habits, anywhere you see success, you're going to see consistent behavior. And the best way to develop consistent behavior is to have systems that enable that consistent behavior. Helps you achieve your long-term goals, reduces decision fatigue. It's got all these upside benefits, but it's hard to do. And so we're going to talk about some things you can do to make kind of lower those hurdles and try to help you establish these systems in your life. So, a couple of quick anecdotes. I know that when I was playing baseball, one of the things I would do is every night I would do my wind-up in the mirror 50 times, every night without fail, without a ball, without a glove. I would do my wind-up so I could see where I was holding my hands. I could feel my balance point. I could see what my leg kick looked like. I could see what my stride looked like. I could make sure my front shoulder was not flying open instead of pointing directly at home plate. Where I wanted it to be, I could see how I was driving towards the plate. I did that every night without fail. That's a habit, right? At the times in my life when I've been in the best shape possible, I ate the same things over and over and over again. I didn't have a lot of rules around my nutrition, but they were steadfast. A couple of them were, I ate protein for breakfast, period. Didn't eat anything else, just protein for breakfast. I did not eat after 7 p.m., period. It didn't matter if I was hungry. I could wake up and have protein in the morning. But when I was really serious about my fitness, when I was pursuing a career in athletics, those were the systems. They were just what I did. So I created those rules and then followed those rules. And I did it over a long period of time, and it delivered really good results for me. So we're going to talk a little bit about, in one of the tips, James Clear's Atomic Habits. And if you've not read that book, we highly suggest you read that book because it is extremely granular and describes exactly how habit formation happens and how you can impact your success on both replacing and removing bad habits and developing and implementing new habits that are more productive for you. So we're going to give you 5 tips. Let's jump into those tips right now. Number 1 is automate repetitive decisions. So this is a no-brainer. The example on this is Mark Zuckerberg or Steve Jobs wearing the same outfit daily. I always wear this red shirt for my podcast. This is a shirt I do my podcast in. So I don't have to make a decision. What should I wear? What t-shirt should I wear? How should I look? This is it. This is what I do. I want to focus my time and efforts on delivering quality content to our listeners and providing you real world live examples and recommendations on things you can do to make your lives better, to improve your lives. Because we're working on these same things. Like, this isn't us preaching. This is us sharing what the research that we're doing and the things that either have been successful for us or things we're working on being successful at right now. And so if you can remove from the daily activities all of these little decisions that you have to make, it frees up that time and mind share to focus on the decisions that are important. So removing the friction from those daily activities is terribly important. And here's some ways you can automate. Here's some tips on how to automate some of the repetitive decisions. Number 1, dummy down your wardrobe. You don't need to wear 18 outfits. It's just not necessary. So if you start there, that's a good one. Just It's Monday, I wear this on Monday. It's Tuesday, I wear this on Tuesday. Or this is what I wear all the time, some version of this. It removes those decisions. That's a great way to go. Set up meal prep routines for the week. Prep all your meals on whatever. Let's just say you work Monday through Friday and have weekends off. On Sunday, you're going to prep all your meals for the week. So you don't have to think, what am I having for lunch on Monday? You pick up out of the fridge or the freezer what you made yourself for lunch on Monday and go to work and eat when you're hungry. Like automate it. Just don't even think about it. Do the meal prep. It's done. You don't have to worry about it ever again. Use your calendar to schedule recurring tasks. I work out every day at noon. I work out every day at 6 p.m. I work out every day at 5 a.m. Doesn't matter when it is. Put it in your calendar so that it's there and it's a commitment. You can do the same thing with reading, with stretching, with your hobby, with social media. Maybe you give yourself an hour every night to unwind and look at social media because it's helpful for you to relax and kind of get your mind off of stuff. That's fine. Book it in your calendar. That way it's repetitive. You're not guessing. You're not asking. There it is. You know what you're doing at 6 o'clock tonight. There's also automation tools out there that can help you do those things. There's tools that will help you filter your email. You can set your bills on auto pay. You can set recurring grocery orders. All of those things remove decisions, small decisions that you have to make, and you can make them repetitive. So in a real life application, you're a busy parent and you use a combination of meal delivery service and grocery subscriptions. So you don't have to worry about daily food planning. You plan it on Sunday, you order it, and then you just follow the plan during the week. So that's tip number 1. Automate those repetitive decisions. Okay. Tip number 2, create checklists and standard operating procedures. Now I get it. I know this sounds a little over the top, but we don't know anyone who's been successful that isn't kind of maniacal about the thing they are successful about. That could be professional. It could be personal. It could be health. It could be fitness. But when you think about people that are really successful in any particular area of their life, there's almost a maniacal approach to what they do. And one way to develop that maniacal approach is to set up checklists and standard operating procedures. So systems work when they are standardized and repeatable. What better way to do that than to write them down and write them out? So think about this from an airline perspective. We don't say because a pilot has 20,000 hours in the cockpit, just fly the plane, you'll figure it out. Absolutely not. That same pilot is going to use the same checklist that they have been using for decades that he or she knows ensures their best chance of success on that flight. And they do it before every flight. Surgeons do it before operations. Football teams do it before football games. Teachers do it before going in and teaching their class. So there's example after example of people that perform at a high level that have these checklists and standard operating procedures in place, and they reference them and they follow the playbook. So here's the concrete actions. Write a checklist for your morning and evening routines. Does it need to be super involved, your routine itself? No, but there's a checklist. Let's say there's 4 things in your morning routine. How do you perform each of those 4 things? What happens? Write it down. Make a standard operating procedure for that particular item, and then make the whole thing into a checklist. Item 1, done. Item 2, done. And you can document those key workflows, whether it be your morning routine, how you approach your work, when you do your email. Like email can be the bane of our existence, right? If we're constantly looking at and responding to emails, it can make us really unproductive because we keep losing our focus, having to refocus on whatever task we were trying to look at because we heard the little ding and we looked at our email. So you can do those same things for work, for personal tasks. When do you go grocery shopping? What is your weekend routine? How are you productive after work? Do you come home, throw your shoes down, grab the remote and veg out for 4 hours? Probably not the most productive way to spend your time, if that is what you're doing. Do you need some downtime? Absolutely. Do you need all night for downtime? Absolutely not. And if you have a standard operating procedure for what you do after work or what you do on weekends, it's a great way to go. There's actually some tools out there that you can use to do that. Notion is one. Google Docs is one. You could do old school and write it down in a notebook. but having a written document by which to refer so that you can stay on task when you start and finish an activity is a great way to go. So let's just say, for example, you're a freelancer and you do marketing for companies or you do accounting for companies. Create a checklist for the onboarding of a new client. Here's our standard operating procedure. We start with step 1 and we finish with step 47. And once we've checked all those boxes, we know we're set up in a good position to provide great service to this client. We haven't missed anything because we worked it off of our checklist. That's going to save the hours of back and forth, making sure you don't miss anything. It's going to give the client confidence that you know what you're doing, that you're on top of your game. So checklists and standard operating procedures are great things to use to develop these repeatable habits. So that's number 2. Tip number 3, build a trigger-based habit loop. And this is where we're going to refer to the book Atomic Habits by James Clear. So what trigger-based habit loop means is you're attaching important activities to existing habits so you can help create consistency. So in James Clear's book, he breaks down the cycle of a habit. And the cycle is there's a cue that triggers the routine. So it goes cue, routine, reward. So there's a cue, you follow the routine, you get the reward after the routine. So if you've got a good habit, and we'll use it, so maybe it's not good, but you've got a recurring habit, brushing your teeth, say to yourself or write down in your standard operating procedure or your checklist, after I brush my teeth, I'm going to read for 10 minutes. Now you've got 2 habits, one stacked on top of the other. One habit triggers the other. So you've got a trigger-based habit loop. After you finish lunch, you immediately get up and go out for a 10-minute walk. One habit triggers another habit. After I check emails in the morning, I'm going to plan out my top 3 tasks for the day. One habit that you know you're going to do triggers another habit. So that's a great way to think about it. Those are some concrete examples. Maybe it's a salesperson who ties cold calling to their morning coffee. It creates daily momentum. So they know they're going to get up and have coffee. And when they have coffee, they're going to make 5 cold calls. A cold call, for those that don't do sales, is I don't know this person, but based on what I know, this person or this company, based on what I know, they could be a good fit for our product. And I'm going to call them and try to prospect some business. So trigger-based habits. Tie one habit to another habit that you're trying to establish. That's a great way to go as well. Okay, tip number 4, use batching and theming for efficiency. So the concept here is to do similar type items one after the other. For example, you don't want to do a very creative process and then turn right around and have to do something very left-brained and efficient or analytical. So if you're doing your creative stuff on Tuesdays, do all your creative stuff on Tuesdays so you're in a creative mindset and you've been thinking creatively and the juices are flowing and things are kind of easier to continue the momentum that you've built. Similarly, do all your strategy together, do all your analytical work together so that you're in that mindset and things kind of flow together. So we do that on our podcast. We tape multiple episodes at once so that we're not constantly trying to figure out what to do. Should I do this? Should I do that? Et cetera, et cetera. We organize it, we put it together, and then we film them one after the other. Now, we don't always do that because we try to do some stuff around current events. And if something real important or something that we feel strongly is worth commenting on happens, then we'll do an episode on that. And that's great. But by and large, if you can batch and theme similar type items together, it'll make you much more efficient. Designate specific days for different type of work. Mondays are meetings. Tuesdays is deep work. Wednesdays is strategy. Thursdays is analytics, whatever the case may be. You can do the same thing with errands. If I've got to go out, I want to go out and accomplish as much as I can. I don't want to run to the grocery store and then come back. And shit, I got to run down to the post office and come back. And shit, I got to run down to the hardware store and come back. Batch those things together so you're as efficient as possible. And you can set dedicated times like we talked about. Set dedicated times for checking email or your phone instead of constantly checking and being interrupted. It breaks up your workflow, forces you to refocus, and makes you much less efficient on performing those tasks. So like real life, if you're a CEO or you run a company, you run a business, you schedule all your decision-making meetings on one day. We've heard the same thing from Jeff Bezos. He tries to set all his decision-making things in the morning when he's got the most time, energy, and mental focus. And then afternoons are for creativity. So that makes sense because it's like items. He's batching and theming his work so he can be as productive as possible when he does it. And then it keeps, and let's say we're following that, you keep one day open for just strategy. And that's great, because you're batching and theming the same type of activities in the same day, which again is going to make you much more efficient and organized as you approach them. And then tip number 5 is you've got to review and optimize this process over and over and over again as your life goes on. It's never set it and forget it. Unfortunately, in life, there is no actual crossing the line, spiking the football, and doing your touchdown dance. You're always going to be working on something. You're always going to be trying to improve something. And if you don't review what you're doing now, you may be performing habits and tasks and activities that supported things that were important to you at one point, but are no longer important to you, or you've already achieved what you look to achieve and needed to change your approach because you're actually pursuing something higher level or something different than you were. So, it's no difference than doing work reviews or performance reviews at work. So individuals should do the same thing that they're forced to do by their bosses. And I get it. We all hate those damn performance reviews. It's a big pain in the ass. You got to do a bunch of work, but there's value in it there if you take a serious approach to it and you really work and look for opportunities to get better, opportunities to recognize what went well, opportunities to recognize what didn't go well and how you can fix it. So the systems in your life should evolve as your life and your priorities change. Your priorities when you're 22 and single with no kids are going to be very different than they would be at, say, 38 when you're married and have 3 kids. You're going to have very different priorities in your life. You're going to have very different activities that are important to you. Therefore, your approach and your habits and your systems will need to change to make those work. We joke around. My wife and I have 3 boys, and we joke around and say, we went from 1 kid to 2 kids. It really wasn't any problem. But when we had the 3rd one in, we had to learn to play the kid's zone instead of playing a man-to-man, because we only had 2. One takes one takes the other, you're good to go. Throw the 3rd one in there, now you're playing a zone defense, and we weren't good at zone defense. It threw us for a loop for about a year before we figured it out. But if you review these things on a regular basis, it's going to be very good for you. What worked? What didn't? Make adjustments. Are your systems still aligned with your goals? Like we talked about, it's going to be very different when you're 22 single, no kids, than 38 married with 3 kids. And then you can use a simple tracking method. There's a lot of apps out there. You can journal it. You can put a spreadsheet together. There's lots of ways to keep track of it. But consistently going back and inspecting what it is you're doing to make sure it aligns with what you actually want out of life, terribly, terribly important. So let's just say you're a runner and you realize that morning workouts work better for you now because of the way your work schedule is, the way your life lays out, than evening. But you've been running in the evening. When you review that, you can say, you know what? I'm going to make the decision to switch my run to the morning. I don't want to give up my run because it's important to me and it's good for me and I get a lot out of it mentally, physically, and emotionally. But it's going to be way better for me and easier for me to be consistent if I switch it to the morning. So by making those, doing those kind of consistent reviews and changing your priorities as your life priorities change, you can really benefit from doing that. So, all right, guys. So those are our 5 tips. Let's just recap them real quick. Automate repetitive decisions. Use checklists and standard operating procedures. Build trigger-based habits. Batch and theme work, and review and optimize your entire process on a regular basis. So we would encourage you, if you're feeling like, hey, that's a lot to throw at us, pick one. Start with one thing and focus on that one thing. One of the 5 tips that we gave you in this episode. Start there and build on that. So we'd love to hear from you too. Do you have processes or ways that you're effective at building habits and building strategies and systems in your life? Because having a system, having go-tos, having things that you can default to are a great way to build consistency in your life. And that will help you go after and achieve the things that you actually want in your life. So that's the episode for today, guys. Hope you got something out of it. Feel like there's some really valuable tips in there and hope you're able to incorporate some of those into your day-to-day life. So James puts it up over here every day. We've got a website, saltygingertalk.com. You can head over there and check out all of our podcast episodes. They're all there. We've got links to all of our social media accounts over there. And then we publish a newsletter every weekday that you can subscribe to on our website. We pick 3 current events. We give a tip of the day. We give a quote of the day. We have a little fun. We're kind of snarky. It doesn't take more than 5 minutes to read, but it can be a fun way to start your day off and stay in the know on some current events and have some things to think about as you're getting your day going. So highly encourage you, if you're so inclined, to check it out. Also, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our podcast on whatever platform you consume it on. Super helpful for us because it bumps us up in the algorithm and helps get our content out in front of more people. And we think a lot of people could benefit from the things we're all here talking about together. So really appreciate you checking us out. Hope everybody has a great week, and we will see you guys on the next episode.